and I think more exciting than the earlier two. Good morning from me, Upasna, on behalf of TAI and the startup ecosystem all around in the Delhi NCR region. Like I said, we've been talking a lot about AI, more specifically generative AI, and we have really got somebody really special here today. We have Akshay Kapoor from the Google team. Please don't go by how he looks. He's got many years of experience behind him. He's done a lot of work in this space. And he's here to talk to you about what Google is doing in AI as well as what generally AI scene looks like. I'm not sure how many of you go to the Google search page these days and find generative AI option on the search page itself. So I think we are moving really fast. This morning, somebody asked me, how soon is it going to be when you see a AI-generated series on your favorite OTT channel? So I think those things are coming real. There are so many use cases that we know about, that we want to know about. And I think there is much more that we need to learn from people who are actually powering the entire scene around generative AI. I would like to welcome on stage Akshay Kapoor from the Google team. Akshay, over to you, please.
A very good morning. Thank you again. My name is Akshay, and I am a technology architect with Google Cloud. But I thought before we even get into understanding the whole hype around Gen AI and what it can essentially do, just a quick show of hands. How many of you have played around with Gen AI? Anybody? Okay, we have a few people. Now, how many of you really think that Gen AI is just another buzzword and it will fade out eventually very, very soon, like crypto and the bunch of others that we've seen in the past? Does anybody feel that way? Okay, so we have one gentleman who feels that. Okay, great. So let's try and talk about what generative AI really is. And the intent of today's session is really going to be, can I really demystify what Gen AI can really do for you, right? I'll be making it very, very simple and giving you a sense of why is it that this technology is so powerful and what can be really achieved with this technology. I think we've entered this industrial revolution 4.0, where we've come to a point where human interactions are changing with multimodal capabilities with systems, right? And generative AI allows you the ability to be able to interact and get responses in a way which has never been heard before, right? And specifically AI has always been there since many years now. But what's really special behind generative AI is something that I'm going to talk about. You must have heard of these terms called LLMs or large language models, right? And large language models are the basis of everything that generative AI really is. To give you a sense of what a large language model is, let's go back in history, right? Typically, in programming language, you would essentially you provide a set of input and you tell the machine what should the output be like, right? Fast forward to 2012, there came neural networks where you used to tell the machine with, let's say, a bunch of images or a bunch of images of animals, and let's say, what is the image of a cat versus what is the image of another animal. And with great accuracy, the system understands and it tells you that any new image is either a cat or a new animal. Well, with large language models or with generative AI as such, this has gone to another level where things have become multimodal. And what I mean by that is, you don't teach the system what the output should be. The system learns automatically and it tells you what the output or whatever the context of the user is, right? So let me take a very simple example in this case, right? You see the sentence, the animal didn't cross the street because it was too tired, right? And how the system learns is, each of the 11 words in this sentence look at the other 10 words and sees what is the relevance for each of the words. So, in this case, you see there is a pronoun called it, right? Now, pronouns are typically ambiguous, right? They typically follow a noun any given point in time. Now, in this case, there are two nouns, the animal as well as the street. Now, which noun has more relevance is the most important question for artificial intelligence. Self-attestation is a way in which LLMs typically understand the relevance of each of these words. The bluer the line, the higher the relevance. And hence, in this case, you see the relevance is higher for animal. And hence, the pronoun it refers to animal. Now, imagine this is being done at a scale of billions of terabytes worth of data, right? This is just a simple example to show you what happens behind the scenes. Now, when you think of LLMs, simply think of it as autocomplete on steroids, right? It can predict the next word basis the context that the users are typing in. I'm sure everybody would have used Smart Reply or Smart Compose in Gmail, right? You see it automatically starts doing autocomplete for you. So think of LLMs as an autocomplete algorithm, but in a much greater scale. Now, that we've understood how LLMs really work, what exactly is generative AI and large language model? So when you talk about large language models, it has three qualities. First, these are emergent in a way wherein you don't need to train the model and tell them how to decipher something or how does one thing work and one thing doesn't work. You just give it a corpus of data, it understands the patterns and it understands how to make sense from all of these patterns. Second of all, LLMs are normally pre-trained. What does that really mean is, it doesn't require specific set of fine tunings, right? The methods that I showed you, and for folks who probably have heard of the term transformers and encoders and decoders, these are all methodologies in which models are trained, right? So large language models are essentially generative in a way where it allows you to be able to build on the context that the user has set. Now, if you look at why is it really different, the best part is you don't need to tell the model how to train and you don't need to tell the model what should the responses be. You give in a context, you give in a prompt, the responses can be multimodal. It could be text, audio, video, music, whatever you want, right? In that capabilities, generative AI essentially allows you to build on top of what the user already wants. Now, having said that, if you look at what generative AI is, it's nothing but a sort of artificial intelligence that generates content for you, right? And we would have probably used, there are so many tools out there, but, and you might ask, what is the type of content if you can create, right? Think about anything today, it can be generated with generative AI, be it text, audio, video, or even code for that matter, right? Now, so how does it work? You give it a prompt, you ask the generative AI to give the output in whatever fashion you want, and there are a bunch of tasks that it can do for you. For example, document summarization, code generation, marketing campaign, and so on and so forth, right? The number of use cases are plethora depending on the industry and or the business problem that you guys are trying to solve for. Now, Google has been the pioneer in artificial intelligence in a big way. It all started in 2017, as you can see, when Transformers was released, right? The Transformer model is the basis for everything generative AI today, right? And you would have seen every year there has been some sort of incrementality in terms of what has been released in artificial intelligence. Now, most of these, right from from transformers to BERT, these are all foundational technologies, right? Anything that built on top of this, all the consumer products that you see today leverage the same technology, right? There's an analyst that really said Google is like the founding fathers of LLMs because it leverages the technology that Google open sourced in 2017. For folks who probably look at or probably see Google I/O, back in 2016, we made an announcement that Google is an AI first company, right? And given the advancements that we've made ever since, every product that you see in Google has some sort of AI infused into it, be it Google Maps, be it YouTube, be it Gmail, or any other products that you come across, right? And we've decided that going forward, we will induce artificial intelligence and generative AI in every product of Google that you will use. Again, right from Gmail, I'll give you an example of what is there with Gmail, to Google Maps, to YouTube, and every other product, right? So, I'm not sure if people have already seen this, but typically creating a presentation with visual images is really time taking, right? With generative AI, what you can do with Google Slides is essentially right when you're presenting, you ask it to create a beautiful image of whatever your presentation is, and it creates an image right then and there for you. You can ask it to create an entire presentation given the context that you have, either your business or whatever use case, it will create an entire presentation for you, right? And now all of these things are available to be able to use it. We've already used autocomplete and smart compose in Gmail, right? We take it a step further. If you've seen this feature called Help Me Write, with Help Me Write, you can essentially, generative AI will essentially draft an entire email for you. So think about writing your next loan application. Generative AI can do that right from start to end. No autocomplete, but generate the entire email for you. And not only that, it even looks at the tone of the email basis which you want to write an email, right? If you haven't tried it, I highly recommend trying it today. By far one of the best features. Does anybody use Google Photos over here? Oh, majority of the people. So with Google Photos, I'm sure you would have seen, you could essentially find people, scenes, scenarios, and you'll get the relevant images. Now, with Magic Eraser, we've taken this to the next level where you can essentially remove distractions from any images. Now, all of that is really possible because of the AI technology that we've been talking about. I'm not sure if majority of you over here know this, but in Pixel 8, there is this feature called, you saw that feature? Wherein the feature is essentially takes the best photo of you. If you're looking anywhere else in a group of people, it will make sure that it will move your face in a way where everybody else is also looking, right? All of these capabilities are powered by the same technology that I just talked about. And of course, all of this is also powered in search. Now that you go on search on Google Cloud, these are called search generated experiences. We are essentially going to power search in a way wherein Google search will answer questions that you've probably not heard before. Typically today when you go and ask any questions on search, it gives you relevant links. Now think about going forward, asking it any questions, it plans out the entire response and lets you know how to achieve something rather than going through the link, right? So think of summarizing what your problem is, or rather you're summarizing the solution to your question in a way wherein you don't have to go and visit multiple different links. All of this by just asking a simple question on the same old search bar. Now, this is all about what Google has built for everybody to use, for consumers. Now, what if enterprises and businesses today want to be able to build similar set of capabilities for their business needs? Is there a platform that allows me to use the same technology that Google is using internally for all of these applications? And the answer to that is Google Cloud. All of what I've mentioned so far in terms of technology is all available on Google Cloud for you to build your own applications and use cases. Now, it ranges from many different areas, right from a business user to an AI practitioner, right? You could create use cases because of LLM. You have the ability to be able to build on use cases either by using a drag drop mechanism to create simpler use cases, or if you really want to fine tune your model to build very, very focused and specific applications for on top of your data, you essentially have that capabilities as well. Why don't we see a couple of examples to be able to show you what is really possible with generative AI? Now, how cool is that? You saw it not only created images, but it understood the context and the demographics of the user, created specific images for the products that are out there by the company, and then created specific marketing messages, and then eventually wrote an email. Now, the best part of all of this really is not the ability to just create any images, but as a brand or as a business, if I want to use an existing image and build on top of that, that's the beauty of generative AI. Think about any images, any ad copy generations that you want to do. Build an image basis any specific user or customer requirement. All of that powered by Gen AI essentially means the time to market to be able to build out and make it live from days, it's gone down to minutes, right? And to do all of this, there is not a single line of code that you need to write. It's all natural language and all just prompts, right? So you write a prompt, it understands what it needs. So the better the prompt, the better the response, and eventually you can use it in your businesses, right? So this was an example of how do you do image generation and text generation. Let's look at another example of conversational experiences. Play the video, please. Now, this is like having your best friend and your mom when you're shopping online, right? It tells you what you like, what you would like, depending on what's the occasion, and it doesn't just stop there. It also helps me understand what is the best pair of shoes that it can pair with, right? From a business perspective, it helps me get and start recommending better products to users to be able to build all of these use cases. Now, I would definitely want, by the way, all retailers, top retailers are essentially implementing all of these technologies in some form and way, and you would see that change coming in very, very soon. The best part about all of this really is the ability to be able to talk in natural language. You can either talk on in the microphone or you can type in natural language, and the system understands what it means and essentially suggests and recommends the best products slash features that you are essentially requesting for. To give you another example, let's just play this other video. Creating images, marketing them, and upscaling images is the biggest aspect of what generative AI can do. Any images that you have, not of good quality, essentially can be upscaled like you saw with generative AI, right? I have a couple of more examples, but I think in the interest of time, I'll probably skip this, but it's to give you insights into how in healthcare, generative AI is going to be, is being utilized, right? Now, most interestingly, all of what I just showed is in a couple of buckets in Google Cloud, right? And what is really Google's offering in this space? Now, when you look at Google specifically, it has an entire AI ecosystem allowing developers to either build everything from scratch or for business users on the one end to be able to create with easy drag and drop tools. These are classified, and you would have heard of these two different offerings from Google because consumers are different than enterprises, right? You would have heard of Bard, which is a consumer generative AI tool where you can essentially go and ask questions. If you haven't tried it, try it out at bard.google.com. Ask it any question, and it essentially will give you whatever the responses are. Now, this is a consumer grade or a consumer facing generative AI tool. When enterprises want to use it, it comes bundled in Google Cloud under the Vertex AI umbrella, because enterprises need and require stringent requirements around data residencies, security, fraud, and many more. To give you a sense of what are the different models or the large language models that are available in Google, these are just a few on the left that are there. Everything starts with Palm 2. Palm 2 is the large language model that is powering Bard today as well. Then we have Cody, which is for code generation for all developers who essentially want to write code and need an AI assistant. You could use Cody as a large language model to be able to write code. And then you have Imagine. All of the image generation use cases that you saw are all powered by Imagine as a large language model. Now, the question is, why do you have so many different models? Each of these models are trained with large corpus of very, very specific data to be able to achieve the tasks that they should be doing. In that case, all of these models also have multiple different variants. And you see on the screen, the unicorn, bison, otter, and gecko, these are sizes of the models basis the parameters they are tuned on. So depending on the use case, you could use any of these models for any of the use cases that you want to. It is classified into two categories like I mentioned. On the left is Duet AI, and on the right is everything Vertex AI. Think of Duet AI as a companion, your AI assisted companion across everything and anything that you do in Google Cloud or otherwise. Right from Duet AI in Google Workspaces to Duet AI in Google Cloud. It can not only help you write code, it can help you understand what are the security threats that are coming in. It will help you visualize data with the help of natural language, all with just a simple prompt. And on the right, if you want to build your own specific use cases or you want to fine tune the large language models, you use something called as Vertex AI. It's an AI platform which gives you all the tools that we just saw to be able to build your own specific use cases. Now, Duet AI in Google Cloud is probably by far the only offering that is available today that allows you to have an AI companion across everything that you do in cloud. Like I mentioned, right from writing code to looking at security threats to remediating the threats and also understanding from or getting insights from data, all of these can be powered by just an AI assistant. And what that means is you probably don't have to do the heavy lifting of writing everything from scratch. You could just leverage this AI assistant to be able to achieve everything. And you've already seen example of what is possible with Workspace, right? Right from getting into a meeting, if you haven't tried it, if you go to Google Meet, AI assist, and if you, let's assume you are late for a meeting, Duet AI in Google Meet can essentially be available for you before you arrive in the meeting, and it will give you a catch-up summary until you come into the meeting. So anything that you do gives you a summarization and essentially gives you the next set of tasks as well from a specific meeting. Now, all of this is heavily relied on our AI principles. And Google's technology is grounded by all of these AI principles when we are building such technologies, right? And you would have seen specific use cases don't work very well in Google. That's primarily because of our AI principles that you would come across. I have customers who've told me a specific set of use cases, a consumer driven use case works on the internet but doesn't work on Google Cloud. And that is largely because how we have grounded our models to be able to not give out these answers basis our AI principles. And Google has made a lot of stride in what do we want to make sure is available to enterprises as well. And responsible AI is the way where enterprises as well as consumers can leverage our AI products. Now, the most and probably the last slide, or rather the last feature in terms of what enterprises really care for, is it really enterprise ready, right? Because for enterprises, like I mentioned, the 4 key tenets of any enterprise today is really data governance, reliability, security, and responsible AI. I've covered most of those, but the most important piece that I probably want to cover is the data governance piece. Google Cloud is the first cloud provider to be able to have a commitment in place wherein it tells you how the data is being used by Google. It'll tell you that no data, no customer data is essentially ever used by Google. Everything by default is in accordance to our cloud data processing addendum. And these are all links that are available for enterprises to be able to use. By default, anything that is available on Google Cloud is secured and it is not used by Google or any other customer for training their data as well. Now, this slide looks a little complex, but when I show it to customers, they get very excited. What this really talks about is the outer blue line is really the perimeter of the customer's security, or rather the customer's boundary. Large language models are typically in Google, the large language model is a frozen model. Any prompt input or output to the large language model is always within the customer's perimeter. And how does it do that? Is because of a small adapter layer that you see right in the middle. Anything that you use in terms of prompts or input is sent through this adapter layer. Everything in transit in rest is always encrypted. So what that means is neither your data, neither your prompts or your inputs are essentially shared with anybody apart from you. It's there inside your tenancy, which is the outer blue line, and it is secured by the security guardrails that you have in place for your own enterprises. Which brings me to the last slide, is there is probably just the beginning of what is out there with generative AI, and we invite customers and partners to come along and build the next set of future applications and use cases with Google. That's it from my side. Thank you so much for being such a patient audience. I'll be happy to take some questions if we have some time.
Hi, my name is Prayush. I'm from a drone company.
Okay.
I had a question with regarding, can we use generative AI on map data? Have you enabled that?
So in Google Maps today, if you've seen immersive experiences, it's probably not available in India yet, but immersive experiences is essentially powering generative AI capabilities inside maps. So yes, the short answer is yes. It's already released in, I think, a couple of cities globally, like London, San Francisco, New York. By the time it comes to India, it's going to be some more time. But yes.
Yeah, I'm Bhuvana from HCL Tech.
Hi.
So I have a question on, in terms of more on the testing side and DevOps side.
Mm-hmm.
So how the GenAI gives or provides a solution towards testing and DevOps?
Very interesting question. So in terms of testing, so think about the usual use cases where most of the developers, including myself, I used to hate writing test cases. Can generative AI help you write test cases for better code efficiencies? The answer is yes. With Duet AI, you could essentially give it an entire code base, ask it to write unit test cases for any programming language today, and it will create test cases for what you want. From a DevOps perspective, again with Duet AI, right from, if you go to Google Cloud Console and if you leverage Duet AI there, right from understanding where the problem is in your logs to explaining what the error is in that log and how do you fix for that error, can all be powered with Duet AI from the same console. Typically, you essentially see what the error is, go to Google search, type the error message, that probably leads you to Stack Overflow or some other page. You will see how people have solved for that problem, and then you will come back. So there is a whole lot of context switching that happens. Now with Duet AI, right from the console, you click on something called as explain this log entry. It tells you what the error is. It also tells you how to solve for that error. And it takes it a step further where if it is a Google command or anything else, otherwise on the console, you can ask it to solve it for you. So all of that in an end-to-end, right from identification to resolving that query, can be done with Duet AI in Google Cloud.
Thank you. I have one more follow-up
Please.
questions. So you said like code is for code development, right?
Yes.
So similarly, is there any ready-made tool available for my test case automation, like script automation, which I can adopt and enhance it according to my use case?
You mean generating test cases?
Generating scripts, automating a script.
Automating a script. Yeah, you could. I mean, if you look at Cody, or rather with Duet AI. So Duet AI under the hood calls a bunch of large language models. Cody is one of those. You could use Duet AI to automate a lot of these scripts, right? Given a prompt, it could create and automate the entire script for you depending on whatever is, in whatever language it might be, right? It supports, I think, around 20 plus languages. So think about any language, you should be able to automate as well. By the way, all of these are available. You can go ahead, play around with all of these tools. Most of it is already in GA. Some of it, the advanced features are probably in preview.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rohan from Drone Mandi.
Hi, Rohan.
So my question is, like, most of the data for generative AI like ChatGPT or Bard is taken from the websites.
Mm-hmm.
So people will eventually stop going to those websites, and those websites will eventually be like, those won't make business and will stop. So in future there won't be any data set for these kind of generative AI. So how will you tackle that situation in future?
So why do you think people won't go to websites? Because generative AI gives you the answer, right? See, I think it's not that generative AI is probably going to take away everybody's job and businesses to be able to make sure that people probably don't start creating anything new, right? I think everything will coexist, in my opinion, with generative AI, because it is trained on a large corpus of data. It doesn't necessarily mean that anything new should not be added, right? It is only trained up until a certain point in time, 2021, 2023, or I mean, for example, Google's models are trained until, last I remember was, I think, February or March 2023, right? Up until that point, there is a huge corpus of data that it is trained on. Now, for it to train again on everything that is coming out new, it takes a whole lot of time and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to be able to train a large language model, right? So I don't see that happening, but it's a matter of fact with generative AI, you could essentially enhance and augment the capabilities that any use cases or any businesses might have for that matter. So it probably works better for businesses rather than not writing or creating newer websites.
I have a question around evaluation.
Sure.
You mentioned that code can be generated.
Yes.
Is it possible to say that this code is meeting the standards, like in a code review or in an interview?
Great question. So I could probably show you live. I have in one of my examples. How customers are using currently is when I start writing code, I want to be able to make sure that the cyclomatic complexity of my code is far better. Can generative AI help me reduce the cyclomatic complexity just before I commit my code? The answer is yes. People are using it to, before committing, make sure that the cyclomatic complexity is less than 10, no matter how you write the code in whatever language. And generative AI can do that for you. So with Duet AI like the Duet AI that I was talking about in Google Cloud, it is all powered in VS Code. So it's there in the ID, no context switching. You just ask it questions for code eval and making sure it reduces the cyclomatic complexity as well.
Sorry, one final question. If it's not in VS Code, is it possible for us to hit the API and get
Absolutely. So it's there in VS Code because the VS Code, it leverages the Cody models that I just spoke about. You could leverage the same as well if you want to build anything on top of for your end users or your customers or your business users internally. So you have the ability to use the large language model directly or leverage VS Code if you want to use it internally as well.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hi, this is Malik from NWDCO. So
Malik.
I have a question. Can I connect generative AI or BARD AI to my MySQL database or any of my databases so that it can read the data that I have and then maybe answer questions to that data?
Absolutely. So think about, you want to generate any insights from your data today.
Correct.
So again, with Duet AI, it essentially is connected, let's say, to your warehouse where all of your data comes in from all databases, multiple different data sources. Then you start asking in natural language questions and it generates the SQL statements for you to be able to query that data.
But not generating SQL statements, but then just answering like a normal user would ask.
Yeah, so it would, from a business user perspective, you don't know what the SQL statements are, but if you want to know, the tool gives you that capability as well, but eventually you will get the answer. You just don't get the SQL statements. Behind the scenes, yes, it generates the SQL statements given the schema and what you're asking for, and eventually you will just get the response.
Okay, so I can configure my what my SQL data is also.
Yes, you could. So given a schema, you can ask the questions. It will give you the responses. You can take it a step further. You can ask it to create dashboards as well. So think about if a dashboard is available and people want to slice and dice on the data that is there on a dashboard with a chatbot interface that is available with most of these products. You could essentially ask questions in natural language and then it will slice and dice the data on the dashboard and either create a dashboard for you and give you the responses from the dashboard as well.
What is the dashboard solution?
It's called Looker Studio.
Looker Studio.
Looker Studio. So Looker is another visualization tool that is there by Google, and that tool powers all of this.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions, folks? All right. Thank you so much for your time. You've been a great audience. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you so much.